Sound speeds. And if you use the Sony MDR-7506 headphones, then pay close attention because I'm about to introduce you to a pair of inner ear monitors that mimics their sound, or at least that's their claim. But before we get going, full disclosure, Myna did send me a universal set of IEMs, and they flew me up to Nashville to take a tour of their Myna facility in exchange for a fair review. I do get to keep them following this review, but I'm not going to allow that to affect my opinion, so you can expect this to be a fair and honest review. Now, I could tell you about Myna, but instead I'm going to let the people that work on the Myna IEMs and gave me the tour give you the tour instead, and they're going to do a far better job of explaining them than I could.
Hi, I'm Glenn True. I'm the owner of True Audio, and I'm a sound mixer by trade. So that experience allows me to come up with ideas for products that the mainstream manufacturers might not come up with. So recently, I say recently, it's been about a year and a half now, I came up with the idea of custom molded in-ear monitors, but the difference is between ours and what's been available for a while is that our brand mimics the sound of specific headphones. So sound people can go from the headphones to in-ear monitors while keeping their point of reference. And the brand name is called Myna. And it was named Myna because of the Myna talking bird that mimics sounds that it hears. So we're going to walk inside and show you the Myna Lab where these in-ear monitors are developed. In the in-ear monitor industry, all the brands to this point were made for live stage performers so that singers, guitar players, bass players, drummers, and so forth could hear themselves. The in-ear monitors didn't have to sound like anything in particular except what the artist wanted to hear. They didn't have to reference anything specifically. That made it difficult for production sound professionals to go from their headphones to in-ear monitors because they'd lose their point of reference. The EQ would sound different. It would make them blend things and mix differently. So we came up with the idea to mimic industry standard headphones so that you can go from your headphones to the in-ear monitors while keeping your point of reference. It sounds virtually the same. To do that, it was actually very difficult, as we found out. We've been working about a year and a half on this solid, and here's the process we went about to accomplish this. Starting off with the headphones, and we started with the Sony 7506 because that's pretty much the standard in the US. There's other brands people use a lot, but the Sonys are probably 85 to 90% of the headphones used in professional, in this case, TV and film sound production. So we start with the headphones, and we invested pretty heavily in some laboratory equipment. This device here listens to in this case, the headphones that are mounted there, and goes into this audio precision device, which analyzes the data it gets from that machine and does a visual graph of what the frequency response is of the headphones. And that's what these charts are for here, to show you the graph of the headphones. So this is how we analyze the headphones. Then the headphones come off, and normally with the headphones on there, we have the artificial pinna, which feel kind of freaky. They're so realistic. Those come off, and then to test the in-ear monitors, they go on here, which basically bypasses the pinna and the canal, so that we can then analyze how closely we come to the headphones. You can get it very close to the graph, and it sounds pretty close. But the human ear is actually so sensitive, it is better at telling the difference between what sounds like the headphones and what doesn't. So the final step is always listening. Then fine-tune adjustments are made after that. A lot of people think that having flat headphones is the way to have the most natural sounding headphones. It's not true, because the outside of the ear, called the pinna, and the canal that the sound goes through before it gets to the eardrum is different on everyone. And that has a huge effect on the frequency response and the sound character of the headphones. That's why the signature of these headphones in particular, these are the Sony 7506. You see all the jagged lines? That's caused by the pinna and the ear canal. So the challenge is in mimicking headphones, because in-ear monitors bypass the pinna, the outside of the ear, and it bypasses the ear canal. The challenge is making the in-ear monitors have the same signature without that effect. It's very difficult to do, very time consuming, and we learned a lot. But I'm really happy with the final result. In this case, the 7506 versions very closely mimic the sound of the headphones. The final step of the magic in making Myna in-ear monitors is here in the Myna Lab in Nashville. So come on in, I'll show you what's going on. So with a background in production sound mixing, I had the idea of in-ear monitors to mimic the sound of the headphones we use. But it's one thing to have the idea, and another thing completely different to have the skills and experience to make these complex devices. So that's where our design engineer, Drew Caylor, comes in with over 30 years experience in in-ear monitors and hearing aids. So I'll have Drew take us through the process once it gets into his laboratory.
Hi guys, I'm Drew Caylor. I'm the design engineer with Myna in-ear monitors. I'm going to take you through the process here today in the Myna Lab. The first thing that happens when we're creating a custom set of in-ear monitors is we get in ear impressions from the audiologist, from the customer, and I take these and I begin to do some rough detailing to the impression itself. And I use some various tools such as our Dremel and a bench grinder, and I shape them so that they fit comfortably for the customer. Once I've detailed these ear impressions, I take them to a 3D scanner that we have from Smart Optics. And I put them in this scanner, and it takes pictures of them for about 5 minutes, and it ends up giving me a 3D model that we use here in the software. And I begin to take it through the different steps to model this earpiece so that it fits the customer comfortably and gives the sound that we're looking for. With the modeling process, there's some really unique things that we do here at Myna. The canal length is to the second bend so that it gives a good acoustic seal as the customer is wearing the product. It's a double sound bore so that the sound actually enters into the ear canal and is mixed naturally within the ear canal itself rather than down in the ear mold. We take it on through, and unlike many of our competitors, we have a very thick shell so that it's strong and robust and rigid out in the field, and it doesn't break easily. I put a connector port in the side of the earpiece there at the crux of the earpiece, and that's for the cable that will connect to it later. As we walk on through that, we start doing some very proprietary things that with the soundboard that we can't really show you today, but it makes for excellent sound. We add the soundboards in there, and then we walk it on through and go in and put the support mill on the end, and we export that piece then to the 3D printer for printing. And once we do that, over here at our 3D printer, we send the files over here, and after about 5 or 6 hours, it'll replicate that model, and out comes the earpieces. These are some universal fit pieces that we've designed here with our 3D printer. And once we've printed them, we'll take them out and clean them up a little bit, and they'll come over here to our post-curing unit. And this is where we finish up the cure of the actual acrylic earpieces. Okay. And once we've post-cured them, then they're ready to be finished out and put some speakers inside of there, and we'll look at that over in the audio room.
A point I think is worth making is that except for the actual drivers, the little tiny speakers inside the Myna in-ear monitors, the entire thing is made in our laboratory here in Nashville. From the design concept that's put on AutoCAD, then fed to the other room where it's digitally processed and eventually 3D printed in a resin bath printer. It's made right here in Nashville. To give you an idea of how difficult these are to make, take a look at some of these components. On the left, you see some acoustic dampers that are screens made to a specific porosity to affect certain frequencies, a certain amount of dB. Then to the right of that, you see the little green enameled wires. You see how tiny those are with each end tinned. And then the red ones, so we can keep phase coherency. And then the little cup there is part of the crossover networks that are also installed. So those parts and pieces and more, along with the drivers themselves, go in each Myna earpiece. Also, each Myna earpiece has 5 drivers installed. The goal in making an in-ear monitor is to use as few drivers as possible to get the sound that you want. Because when you add drivers, then suddenly you have to deal with phase. We determined that to mimic the 7506, it required 5 drivers to get the sound that we wanted. So each one has 5 drivers.
Once we get our earpieces back from the audio lab and the speakers have been installed, the drivers have been installed, I will start closing them up with a lid. And I'll glue that on and cut that out with the Dremel, and cut it down to where it looks like this. I've cut the piece out with the Dremel, I've sanded it, I've polished it, and it goes back for testing. And we have different ones that you can see the recessed connectors there, the sound bores, and all of that. Once I get the lid on there and I cut that out and sand it down, then one of the last steps is for us to put the mother of pearl logo on all the pieces. And you can see from these pieces, we've actually spared no length to put these nice mother of pearl logos on these pieces. Let me show you over here what I mean by that. Is we get a real thin sheet of mother of pearl, okay? And we take it to our CNC machine in the back room back there and download a file to it, and we end up cutting out on the CNC machine some mother of pearl birds and Mynas. And these are like just a wafer, like piece of paper. Well, I'll take those, and on these earpieces, I'll take some of the clear resin that we use in the process, and I'll dip these birds into that resin like honey. And I'll lay it on the back of this mold, and it'll suspend itself in that resin. And then I'll add more resin until it's sort of domed, and then I'll cure it. I cure it in this UV light curing machine. And this is pretty neat because UV resin, when it cures, if it cures in contact with oxygen, it comes out sticky. So we actually have a nitrogen tank that we feed nitrogen to our machine, and it gets all the oxygen out of the curing chamber so that this material can cure tack-free. And the result is absolutely beautiful. Suspended mother of pearl cutouts in the shape of the Myna logo, and then once we polish them over here on a polishing wheel, they come out just absolutely fantastic. Now, one thing I want to really point out is that our product has been designed and engineered for on-location sound professionals. So what we've done is something a little bit different than most people do. We have a non-reflective finish on our pieces, a satin finished, a brushed velvet look to it, so that it's not ultra glossy or shiny and reflective. We've done that on purpose. The non-reflective polish that we've put on there is for the on-location sound professional, but it looks fantastic, very robust and strong. And once the pieces are put back together, then we send them back to the audio room to be tested again. These are handcrafted, custom made for your ears, for the customer's ears. And they're, it's right here in Nashville. Once we send that over to the audio room, then our engineer over there, he will test them and make sure that the graph is still matching that 7506 signature that we want.
We pride ourselves on making as much as possible at our shop here in Nashville. So even the little mother of pearl graphics that you get on the elite model of the in-ear monitors are made here in the CNC Router Room.
One thing I'd like to also mention is that Myna makes universal fit in-ear monitors as well. Just like our custom earpieces have 5 speakers in each ear, the universals use the same driver kits, so you get that same 7506 sound signature. These have been designed and handcrafted for the on-location sound professional to meet all of their needs. And one of the things that we have added to the lineup with this product is a screw-on adapter, a 1/8 inch to a 1/4 inch, because we know you guys are used to using this type of connector. Perfect. Fits with this nice, robust, high-grade cable here. I've been manufacturing custom-fit products for many, many years. And this design that we've incorporated into our custom and universal fit products is a new concept, mimicking established headphone sound signatures and putting them in a custom form factor is fantastic. There's a lot of advantages of going to the custom piece. It fits in your ear, it's custom made for you, and it gives you that level of isolation that you just can't get with over-the-ear style headphones.
After doing the tour, I was sent a pair of universal Mynas in order to demo, and the universal ones is the fair way to do it in my opinion because these aren't fitted to my head. The universals are not fitted either. It's got like a piece of memory foam on them, so that way it kind of makes a good seal, and I could easily trade these out with anyone else and let them give a listen to them if they wanted to give me their input as well, versus having a fitted one that fits inside my ear canal that only I can use because it's been molded according to my inner ear. So here's what I found on that. Since I'm comparing the 7506s to a mimic of the 7506s, I decided I needed to have one in one ear and one in the other. That way my brain could do the comparison back and forth between the frequencies that I'm hearing, and if they start to sound awkward in one ear over the other, I could kind of determine that there was something off, and that means that they're not a perfect mimic. And after listening to various different things for nearly 90 minutes, I felt like I had a pretty good grasp of my thoughts and opinions formulated. I just spent an hour and 33 minutes and 57, 58, 59 seconds listening to the Mynas in compared to my 7506s. And I gotta tell you, well, actually, let me start by saying this is the setup I was using. I have the analog out of my MixPre 6, which is basically like a 1/4 inch or 3.5 millimeter. And then I have the headphone jack going from my MixPre 6 going to the 7506s. So the Myna is here in the line out, and then the 7506 is on the headphone. That allows me to dial in the exact volume out of each ear that I want. Now, about the comparison. My 7506s I've been using as pretty much my daily driver at work on set, and I work a lot for about the past 4 years. So there is some age on them. So a little bit of a description on that for you. Now, whether or not you like the sound of the 7506s or not, that's not what this is about. Myna is a mimic. That's the whole point of Myna, is to duplicate your mix in your ear. So if you took off your headphones for whatever reason and wanted to put on IEMs for more isolation, because the 7506s do allow you to hear, like I can hear this very present in this ear, but in this ear, it's not so much. I hear it actually coming through this ear, and that's just by snapping. So if you need more isolation, you want to just not have the headphones and go lower profile, then the Mynas are what that's for. So here are the notes that I took. I originally thought when I put them in my ear and I used this splitter here, I thought there was a mismatch in impedance. And because I heard the Myna a lot louder than the 7506s, but then I realized that's not the case at all. What the difference is that the Myna is inside of my ear canal and the 7506s are sitting on the outer, it's an over-ear headphone as opposed to on-ear or inside the ear canal. So it's not so much that there's an impedance difference, even though there may be. That's not what it was. That's why I had to split it the way I did. Because if I didn't, the volume was going to be different, and whichever one's louder is typically the one that you're going to hear as sounding better. And I wanted to be able to even them out, which is why I did that split on the 7506s and the Mynas via the two outputs on the MixPre 6. Now, at first I was thinking to myself, and I'm going down my notes here, that the talking was resonating in the IEM more so, but then once I kind of dialed it in a little bit better, and then I actually switched a couple of times, I switched ears. So I put this side in my left ear, and then the right ear was the 7506s, and I realized that, and it's kind of interesting, I never really realized this, but my ears are a little bit different. And that's probably because I do this exact configuration at work a lot, where I leave one ear inside of my headphones and the other one outside in the real world. And a lot of people do the same thing with their IEMs. They put one in their ear, then they leave their other ear open. And that's affected the hearing. And I didn't realize that until I was dialing it in. But I will say this, when I switch ears, I hear the same exact thing. So if one ear sounds one way, then the other ear, then when I put on the other device, like if I use 7506s and then I put on the Mynas and I switch, it's the same way. Now, if you are comparing two devices like this, you can take one off and then put that one back on. But to me, that's not really an ideal way of being able to hear things that compare, because when you put two things in your ears and you put one in one ear and one in the other, like for example, if you compare the MKH50 microphone against the MKH8050 and you do different audio tests and you listen to them one in each ear, you're going to hear the differences between the two. You'll hear them as very similar, but you're also going to mainly hear weird things going on in your ears, because some frequencies will be picked up at different distances than others. You'll hear more detail in one ear versus the other. You'll hear a bunch of various different things, and your brain will be like, these sound similar, but at the same time, they're different. So your brain kind of counters and fights you a little bit on that. But I didn't run into that with the Mynas once I kind of dialed in on the volume here. What I will say is that these are universals. They're not fitted. So they fit inside the ear canal, and the kind of memory foam kind of feeling, which is right here, that dials in and makes a really good seal in your ear, which I was very impressed by. The one thing I will say is that it took a little bit of time for me to realize that I did not have a good seal. And that's just me getting used to the Mynas, because I was like, where's the low end? And then I realized that it wasn't all the way in my ear canal. So make sure you understand where they fit in your ears. And once you get that in and it makes a proper seal, you're going to hear all that bass. It comes right out. I will honestly say that I believe the Mynas sound better than my 7506s. They do, frequency response wise, sound the same, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's very difficult for me to really tell because my ears are a slight mismatch. But when I swapped ears and put Myna in one ear and then the 7506s in the other, and then I swapped them back and forth, they sounded the same as far as I could tell. But here's the thing. IEMs are different than over-ear headphones. And there are differences also in the shape of your ear, as Glenn said in the video earlier. And so part of that is their challenge with dialing it in. But as far as I can tell, like even when I pressed a little bit on it to try to take out my outer ear to really just kind of get the speaker closer, then I took some of that out and I heard some of those differences go away. And I'm not going to be able to press this all the way inside my ear canal. Otherwise, I'm sure it would have gone in even more. But here's the thing. I would trust these as very, very identical, if not identical. Now, what I will say is that detail-wise, I put a lot of different things through it. I put through the Crow soundtrack, the Phantom of the Opera, various different songs, everything from hip-hop to classical to... I listened to Soundspeed's episodes. I listened to a whole bunch of different things. And for like an hour and a half, it was just nonstop listening. And sometimes I thought that it was a little bit more like some of the bass was punchier in the Mynas than they were in the 7506s. But then I thought about it. It may also be because the 7506s are older. Usually headphones, some of the drivers will start to deteriorate over time. So if I were to have some more brand new 7506s, they might punch more. And even then, I think the quality of the components inside the Myna are probably better than those in the 7506s. And simply, and I think the way for me to think about that is the actual quality of the sound. It's detailed. They're both detailed. As a matter of fact, I was listening to some of the Soundspeed stuff and I was like, wow, in the 7506s, which are basically a magnifier for the quality, I heard some stuff that really made me not want to listen to my own episodes using the 7506s or the Mynas, simply because I would be overly critical, drive myself completely nuts in post. So I'm glad that I usually use the ATH-M50X headphones or the Atoms when I monitor my own stuff, because I prefer 7506s at work when I'm listening to dialogue, because like I said, the best way I've heard it worded is that they magnify flaws, and at work I'll be more critical, but when I listen to my own stuff, I don't want to be critical. That's just something I don't want to do. I personally think that the shape of my ear does matter versus the IEMs, which fit inside. And I don't think that's an issue with the Myna. I think the frequency response wise, I think the sound is spot on personally, because I listen to things like very bassy, some like old school hip hop. I listen to some Skrillex. I listen to some old Nine Inch Nails and Metallica and the Crow soundtrack. I listened to a whole bunch of different things and really wanted to get a big, vast difference of thoughts and taking all the information. I listened to spoken word. I listened to a comedy album. I listened to just a whole bunch of different things. And I'll tell you this, they sound spot on. I did constantly found myself adjusting the volume of the headphones just to make sure that they were completely dialed in. And it's really weird because when I listened to Infernal from Paris to Berlin, that song, I thought it wasn't, I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Because everything seems more focused on one ear. And then what I did is I switched my ears at that point, and that's when I realized it's the song. The song actually put some sounds more on the left-hand side. And so I was kind of concentrating. Here's the center. Where does the sound like? And then when I switched ears, I was like, I got to adjust the volume and everything to make sure the sound was there. And then it sounded the same. So it was actually the song that was different, not the Mynas. And because that was the one song that I had done that with and ran into that issue, I was like, well, it's obviously not the Mynas because everything else would be different if it dialed in and they were even and I had to set my volume the same. But it was just that one song that changed and then that was that. But I'll tell you this, I actually think I prefer the sound of the Mynas. But here's what you got to understand. IEMs and over-ear headphones are different creatures. The 7506s being over-ear, one of the things about them is their isolation. They allow you to hear through to the outside world a little bit, which to me on set, if I'm wearing the 7506s, I'm able to hear a sound comes from that direction and instantly go that way and point that direction and say the sound was coming from that way. With the Mynas, because it closes up the ear canal, it would not be the same way. Also, the only other thing I'll point out is that you actually do notice about wearing an IEM is that because you're closing up the ear canal, when you hear voices speak, like right now I'm speaking, I hear that resonating more in my IEM than I do my headphones, simply because it closes up the ear canal, and that actually affects the way you hear the voices around you. That's not an issue with the Mynas. That's just the nature of IEMs. Every single one of them would do the exact same thing. All in all, though, I'll tell you this. There were a couple of times that I had things listening and I had my eyes closed and I was like, wait a minute, which is which? I had to think about it for a second because I was constantly with my eyes closed trying to cut out and shut out all outside noises and try to really determine what I was listening to. And so there were a couple of times I had to reach up and touch my head to feel what it was that was on. Did I have the IEM in? Did I have in which ear? Which one did I have the 7506s? And at one point when I was like, okay, I think that the 7506s are not nearly as detailed as the Myna. I took it out and put both Mynas in and listened to it that way. And from having used the 7506s a lot on set, I'll tell you this, if I wasn't doing an A/B comparison with 4-year-old headphones versus a brand new pair of Mynas, it would probably be a little bit different because I do think that my IEMs here, got to keep in mind, these things have been in rain. They've been abused by the sun. They've been, yanked by the cord. They've been used a lot. Gunshots have been fired around me, explosions and everything else and all that stuff will affect what you listen to over time. So I do think that the Mynas are a match for what I'm listening to in the 7506s. And I mean, that's at least from what I can tell. To me, I think that Myna did a great job with this. And I'd be very curious to hear some of their others in the future as they start to dial in on the profile of other pairs of headphones. But what I will say is that right now I have the universals in my ear. And thinking about that, I personally think that because I was speaking to a couple of my friends who had been given a heads up that I had a pair of Mynas and I was listening to it, they wanted to come over and they spent this last weekend with me for a couple of hours and we were listening to various different things and talking about the Mynas and they listened to it. And because this is, sound speeds and a lot of people will borrow microphones or borrow things that I will review, I think I need to keep the universals and then I'm going to have to buy a pair of the fitted ones. And I will probably also have to get a black pair because these are white and that's not going to suit me on set. So I will keep both the universals, so that way people can use them if they'd like to, and I will keep and I will have to get myself a pair of the fitted ones for me. Oh, but on that note, there is something that you do need to be aware of also if you use IEMs. If they are fitted to your ears, it is something that is actually fitted to your ears, and things will change according to you and how you are. For example, if you don't clean your ears properly and you get a buildup of wax in there, that's going to change the way that it fits inside your ear. If you are prone to gaining and losing a lot of weight real quickly, or even over the course of time, 10 pounds of weight in difference will affect the way that IEMs fit. If you lose weight, they'll fit differently than they were when you were heavier. So just be aware of that. You might want to get yourself a pair of universals if you're like on a weight loss program, or you're trying to gain a whole lot of weight for some reason. Maybe you're too skinny or something like that, just to use the most insensitive of words, which I apologize for. Yeah, that's something you definitely need to be aware of too. So get yourself, if you don't change weight a whole lot and you're looking to dial in on the very best possible sound, get yourself a set of the fitted ones, as if you are pretty happy with your weight and you're probably happy with your hygiene, because it's going to suit you very well. But sorry, I've been rambling on about that. That is my overall thought and opinion. So thank you for tuning into this episode of Sound Speeds. Be sure to tune in the future for more deep dives, product reviews, just showcases, I tell you, in general, of products that you should be aware of, and of course, sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.